it was stupid to believe in God. I had a real snotty attitude towards religion. So you have a God who took human form, and he suffered with us. He was walked on earth with us, and he died just about the most miserable, painful, humiliating death that anybody could.
What if the evidence for God is stronger than most people have ever been told? And what if the biggest myth of our modern age isn't that God exists, but that science somehow disproves him? Welcome to the Spiritually Starved podcast, a place for those who are searching for truth, questioning what they've been taught, or who feel like they're just spiritually hungry, but disconnected from organized religion. My name's Steve Wagstaff. I'm a C5 quad from a diving accident, and I know firsthand what it means to question whether there's a God when there are hard circumstances. But for me, God has proved himself to be faithful over and over. I'm pleased to have on the podcast this afternoon Doug L. Doug's a graduate from MIT, a double major in mathematics and physics, and then got his master's degree, I think, later in, I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce it right, theoretical mathematics.
Yes.
If I got that right. And now practices, or just recently retired, practicing law. So a man that knows logic, knows smarts, but is a committed believer. Doug, thanks for hanging out with a small little group from Swagability on the podcast, the Spiritually Starved podcast.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Steve. I'm delighted to be here. I love talking about God, so thank you for
Amen.
having me.
Amen. Yeah, the whole reason we exist, the whole reason for Swagability is to, in a different way, come alongside people that are going through life-altering circumstances, and they don't need a crutch, but they need something real in that time. And for me, even growing up in a church, at a certain point, I couldn't ride my parents' coattails anymore of it, but did a deep dive for myself and was amazed at the evidence and even what I guess science is talking about now. But before we get into that, can I ask you, at what point did you begin to question that conclusion, maybe that there was no God and everything was science, and science would disprove the existence of any God, let alone the Christian God?
Sure. Well, when I was in college, I was an atheist, and then through graduate school, and then through law school. And when I was in my early 30s, my son was born. My wife said we should get him baptized, which surprised me because we hadn't been going to church or talking about religion. And Steve, so I gave that some careful thought as a committed atheist, and I promptly said, yes, dear. I mean, who needs that fight? So, so we went to church, and I felt something there. And I kind of knew at a level, a non-intellectual, but kind of gut-wrenching level, that I was on the wrong path. I had the trappings of, a young, successful, worldly stuff. I had a good job. I was blessed with that, and health and a nice family. But when I got to that church and I looked around, I knew I was empty inside spiritually. I had shut the door on God. And I just knew it. I can't describe that differently other than to say that. But then I told myself, because I can be a really stubborn fool sometimes, that frequently actually, that Doug, you're an MIT guy. You're science and math, and you can't believe this stuff. I mean, maybe, don't be deluded. Unless you can find scientific evidence for God,
Yeah.
then forget it. Okay. So we started going to church and we met some wonderful families there and everything. But I really began digging deep. And it took me a long, long time to do that. But I taught myself molecular biology, how cells work and how the body's made up. I taught myself cosmology and astronomy and a number of other subjects. I'm still learning. It's been just a joyous journey for 40 plus
Before,
years now. And I everywhere I look, every day, it seems I find new evidence for God.
uh,
I find that science totally supports the existence of God and the truth of the Bible.
uh,
And that's why I'm just so happy to be here to share that with you.
amen. Thank you. I wonder, before the MIT, uh, even before maybe even like postgraduate, or post-secondary school, what was family like growing up back? Was it two parents, brother and a
Yeah,
sister, Sunday school and God, or
it
did
was.
did you
It
come from a
was.
You did.
Yeah, it was two parents. Obviously, I'm the oldest of four boys.
Okay.
We grew up. I grew up in Connecticut in a Congregationalist church.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
but when I got to high school, I read in some science book that life started in a dirty pond,
Wow.
and
And still pushing it too today, aren't they?
there's still that's still in some high school textbooks. And it's a bogus experiment. I won't waste any of our time talking about it. It's been so
Mm.
ridiculously disproved and challenged. But when I read that, I think I was intellectually bullied. I was, trying to be smart, trying to learn, and I just got suddenly the impression that if you don't need God for life, what do you need God? Maybe as youngsters, we all kind of are well, most of
Yep.
us are a little rebellious, and so I seized on that. I thought it was stupid to believe in God. I had a real snotty attitude towards religion,
Mm.
and it just sucked the joy out of my life.
I think that's the danger, isn't it? Of it is that is when we boil it down to religion. Religion is joyless, isn't it? It's do's and don'ts,
Yeah,
um, and and I think you're right. I mean, I think all of us have that. I mean, the Bible tells us our heart is wicked and deceitful. Who can know it? We all have that kind of rebellious attitude. Um, but I was fascinated in listening to your testimony a number of different times. Um, when you started to uh, feel something when you were there, and I believe that for many people, I believe God puts eternity in our hearts.
yeah,
And when you started to uh, feel that and know at a core level, there's something bigger than what I've made it out to be. What would you say was the first domino to drop that you really leaned into and said, okay, there has to be a creator? Was it biology? What was your strongest thing that you laying in bed when, aha, I
it
there's a
was
reason.
biology. It
It
was
was.
molecular biology. I used to
Yeah.
do long distance commuting. I did that. I've done that for decades, where I'd be on 4 to 8 flights a week,
Oh my
and
goodness.
uh, and I remember just being on a plane and reading my enormously thick, nerdy book on molecular biology. And I literally, on the back of an envelope, I just started computing the chance that a single functional protein could have ever arisen by chance in the universe. And the numbers are out of sight. And right there, I knew we had to be designed. I just knew it, and everybody finds something different. But for me, that was like, wow. And the details are a little technical, but not impossible to understand, how the
No,
body,
please share them. Yeah, share. We
yeah, the
got
body. So we have inside us, Steve, things called ribosomes, which sounds technical, but they're miniature 3D printers. Okay, so the body takes in digital code, just like a 3D printer, and prints
yeah.
out a three-dimensional part. Okay, and we have actually trillions of these in our bodies, trillions.
What was it called?
Ribosome,
Ribosome.
Ribosome.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a three-dimensional, ultra miniature, ultra three-dimensional printer, and it takes in the code of DNA, and it's fantastically complex. There are 20 amino acids, and I think of those when I talk, give speeches. I bring a little illustrative set of children's plastic connecting blocks. There's a yellow one, and a red one, and a green one, slightly different. And so the machines in our bodies take the code, they read the first three letters of the DNA code. It corresponds to one of these 20 amino acids. Think of it as a certain color block. So the first three letters say, take the blue block. It takes the blue block. The next three letters say, snap on a yellow block. And it does that. Okay. And it goes through until it reaches a code that tells it to stop. Then, and it gets even more miraculous, but we don't quite, it takes this long snap together chain and it folds them into something fantastically useful. And that is a part in our body that it makes, and parts are called proteins, a word that everybody probably has heard of.
For sure.
Just break that down a little bit, if I could get into it a little deeper.
Please.
I'm sometimes asked to give one scientific basis that I find overwhelming for the existence of God, and this is the one I always turn to. And there's so many, don't get me wrong, but I think this one's pretty easy to understand. We have digital code in our bodies. Everybody's heard the phrase DNA. Okay.
Like even science can believe that. Every scientist, Christian or not.
Everybody, right. Everybody all across the world, every scientist will tell you DNA is real. It's code in our body. And it's digital in the sense that it comes in discrete bits of information. Like computer code or writing is another code. There's discrete letters, spaces.
Yeah.
And what counts is the order in which things are put. Not just what you have there, but the order. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we have digital code in our body. It is fantastically complex. It is more complex than any code human beings have ever put together. In 2011, 400 of the world's top scientists published 30 papers worldwide in major journals after completing a study of the human genome. In other words, all the 3.2 billion letters of computer code that we have in almost every one of our 30 trillion cells. They said that there's at least 2 layers of information. So when I think of that, I like music. I think of a Bach fugue, tune going this way and a tune going that way, just amazingly complex. They found that almost all of the code is functional. They still don't understand what some of it does, but there's not junk code. You may have heard the expression junk DNA. Well, they said that doesn't exist. They found that we have, just as one example of the complexity of this code, we have 4 million switches in our bodies in this code to turn systems on and off. And that's right from the front page of the New York Times. Okay, that's not some religious, hallelujah, just believe me statement. This is the front page of a very secular newspaper. So, how do we get code, the most complex code in the universe, in our bodies?
Hmm.
Uh, I'm a lot older than you, but have you ever heard of a movie called Contact with Jodie Foster?
No. That's really
It's more my generation, but she's a scientist, and what they're doing is they're listening to space through these giant radio telescopes. And people actually do this.
I've heard of
They
that.
search for extraterrestrial intelligence,
Yes.
SETI, SETI, and
Yeah.
huge radio telescopes. They've been doing this for at least 50 years. What are they looking for out there that's going to tell them there's an intelligence? They're looking for code. So
Yeah.
in the movie, they find code and then they think they're communicating, and I guess they are in this fantasy movie with aliens. But that's the signature of intelligence. Do you get it? That's the signature. You can't have code. Everybody knows this without having a mind. You can't have
Mhm.
code without having a coder. We have the most complex code within us. To quote Bill Gates, who's a fairly successful coder, I would say, uh,
Yes.
our DNA is like computer code, only it's far, far more advanced than anything humans have ever built.
And
So,
science is
how
okay with this. Scientists are okay with that.
science, this is, people overlook this. This isn't some uh, fringe
Yeah.
facts. I'm telling you here, this is absolute mainstream, accepted
Yeah.
everywhere. We have fantastically super complex digital code in us. We have 3D printers. And you could go on and on. I mean, the machines that copy the code are incredible. The machines that read the code, like the ribosomes, are amazing.
Mhm.
Uh, about 10 years ago, some scientists got a Nobel Prize because they found that we have 4 different kinds of machines in our bodies that check out the code periodically and fix mistakes. I'm not
That's
making this up. They'll like,
no.
if there's a broken section of code, they'll
Yeah.
snap it together. And, we get radiation and chemicals. If we
Mm.
didn't have these machines, we'd be dead very quickly. Uh, so
I saw him thinking there was
it's
a cellular motor or the tail on it, how it, maybe it was in the cell. Anyway, it was how it was engineered,
yeah.
which is blowing people's minds. I
I
don't know
think you're
who.
probably thinking of the tail bacteria
Oh, maybe that's
flagellum,
what
I
it
think
was.
it's called, if I'm
That's what it
pronouncing
was.
that right.
That's
And
right.
and
Yes.
it spins amazingly fast, and it's totally designed. It's the design in biology is overwhelming,
Yeah.
and you
That's
can't get
something.
code by chance. So it's you know
Yeah. And out of chaos doesn't come order. Because I'm not sure. I haven't opened a textbook in a lot of years. I'm not sure what university now does with some of these arguments, how they explain them. I don't know. Do universities, are they still holding on to the evolutionary process of nothing created something out of nothing? That faith stream, do you
they
know?
are basically, and I mean that's another huge area that's overwhelmingly for God, which is how do you get something from nothing?
Correct.
And so when I wrote my first book and I lectured on it at MIT, there's a
What's the
video
title?
on my website. My first book was Counting to God, and I counted through 7 miracles of modern science, each one that supports God. The first one was creation. How do you create something out of nothing?
Mm.
And you can sort of think maybe, okay, you pull a rabbit out of a hat, you can create a stone. Maybe, I don't know. But what God did is much, much more amazing. And we know this from a great scientist called Albert Einstein. And that is matter and time and space are all connected. You can't have one without the other. That theory is called general relativity.
Yes.
God didn't just create stones and planets and things like that. He created space and time, and it was all created simultaneously. And I mean, secular scientists have a version of that called the Big Bang, which, um,
Everything
and
came
they keep
into.
make up things to try to get that model to work, but their models don't really work. But yeah, I mean, the
Does the bang
defiance of
have to
God
happen?
is strong. There was
Mhm.
a moment of creation. It didn't happen
Yeah.
13.8 billion years ago. Genesis says there was a moment of creation. That's the first sentence. In the beginning,
Hmm.
God created the heavens and the earth.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's
Because I
it,
think, correct me if I'm wrong, does science now say because of the expansion and of the universe, of the consistency of it, they could trace it back to a single point where it, which for a long time, you know, they wouldn't have been okay with, but now that they can trace it back to a single point of it coming into time, did that become a problem for scientists when it came to
they have huge problems, but they won't admit it.
Mhm.
The Bible says 11 times He made the heavens and stretched them out. And what scientists find when they look at the universe is that the universe in its very early stages was stretched. They call that theory inflation. And but when they look at how even the universe looks all around us and how well it's balanced, they have this fudge factor in their equations that there was this mystery force that stretched out the unions. But let's go back to astronomy if we could. There's a new telescope in space called the James Webb Space Telescope. Have you heard
Yeah,
of that?
yes, I have.
So that telescope is designed to see deeper into space. It's shifted
Mhm.
towards the ultra to the
Mhm.
infrared, if you want to get technical. And what they find when they look through the James Webb Space Telescope at the most distant objects in the universe, theories, objects that they're going to tell you were created right after their Big Bang, billions and billions of years ago. Those galaxies are as fully formed as the galaxies close to us. So they would expect under their models to see shapeless blobs, and they're seeing fully formed galaxies. They're
I see.
seeing and they don't know what to make of it. It's totally wrecks all their models. But I mean, there is no limit to the human ability to deny God and to come up with crazy stuff. So if you're asking for these people to actually admit that science proves there's a God, a lot of them won't.
Mhm.
But I've talked to a number of senior scientists privately,
Mhm.
and they know. A lot of them know. They just
Mhm.
can't admit it. They'll say, "Well, I can't say that because then I won't get my papers published."
Right. Um, I've always thought about this when you were talking about space, and we measure these things in light years. And so,
Yeah.
does that mean if something took place, whether it's a star or whatever, and we're just now seeing it, it's that taking that much time from it happened for us to see it? Does that do away with? Um, well, I guess it doesn't do away with the creator. Does it do away with the young Earth? Um,
It they argue that, but their
mhm.
theories, like I say, their theories require a stretched universe too.
Hmm.
So what we see the heavens, and then God stretched them out.
Okay.
We don't know how God did it.
Yes.
I think the universe is 7,500 years old. I realize that statement. A lot of people say you're crazy. I could give you dozens of scientific facts that would agree with that, from the recession of the moon and so on and so on,
Mhm.
the magnetism of the planets in the the rings of Saturn, which are fragile and can't be millions of years old, and so on. But the we don't know how God did it. That doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Yeah, that's the definition of a miracle is
Right.
the very fact that they don't happen every day. What makes them a
So,
miracle?
yeah, okay, that argument is there. Like I said, I've got dozens of other arguments that the universe can't be billions of years old. So,
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's so many things that are coming to mind. So if you're trying to break this down to the average individual that hasn't spent their time in laboratories and things like that, and they do throw out the science can disprove that. It does. Where would you start in an apologetic form, or for the lay Christian that is not versed in all that? Where would you start an argument? When I say argument, but a reasoning towards God to talk to someone about that?
well, there's a lot of literature out there. My newest book is a graphic novel.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's kind of like a larger form of a comic book. It's got
Okay.
pictures and dialogue, and it's called The God Proofs. It's
The,
published by the Discovery Institute out in Seattle, which is the world's #1 organization for intelligent design. And got a brilliant illustrator. I have a website, thegodproofs.com, that we hired an animator to make some short videos, and it summarizes what I'll call 3 main proofs for the existence of God, or at least 3 that I like: a numbers proof, a mathematical proof, a logic proof, and a common sense proof.
okay.
I don't make any money off the book. I've assigned everything to the Discovery Institute, but it's changing lives. I tell you, Steve. I spoke to a woman at my church. Said a year ago she gave a copy to her 10-year-old grandson, and he brought it over to dinner. Thanked her for it. Said he had read it 10 times.
What's the title again? We want to make
It's
sure I get
called
this in the
The
show notes.
God Proofs.
The God Proofs,
And
PROOFS.
thegodproofs.com is a website.
Cool.
I have another website, countingtogod.com. There's a
Yeah,
number of organizations that do this kind of work, though, and that have fantastic literature.
yeah.
And people just sort of have to start. It might not be in your local secular library, but it's out there. It's accessible on the web. The Institute for Creation Research, Creation Ministries International, Answers in Genesis, all have very impressive websites with tons of free material, lots of books, and so on.
We often hear, even those that wouldn't hold to a Christian worldview, they hear of the argument, the fine tuning of
Yeah,
the universe. Can you break that down and explain what scientists mean by
yeah,
that
yeah.
statement, fine tuning?
That was number 2 in my list on counting to God, the fine tuning of the universe.
What was number
So,
one? Biology,
creation from nothing.
creation from nothing. Okay, gotcha. And number
Yeah,
2 was this fine
fine
tuning.
tuning.
Yeah,
And
explain that
so
if you will.
there are constants of physics that you probably remember, and they're numbers that have to be measured, like the strength of gravity,
Yes.
the speed of light, the ratio of the mass of the proton to the electron. There's actually dozens of these things. What they have found, and this is widespread, is that these constants are fine tuned for the existence of life. The example they found is to get the strength of gravity right so that the universe didn't collapse on itself or didn't expand endlessly. The odds of getting it right by chance are like picking the right grain of sand out of all the beaches and oceans in the world and then doing it again. It's it's like walking into, suppose there was a control room for the universe and you found all these knobs. Okay, you can adjust the strength of gravity here, adjust the speed of light there, adjust the electromagnetic force strength over here. And if you just touched one of those dials, the universe would disappear or become impossible to have life. And that's called the fine tuning of the universe. There really is no good secular explanation around it. What they've developed, if you want to get into it, is this fantasy idea that there's lots of other universes and we're lucky. And they have no science for that.
What's that one called? That one, the argument for that, where there's so many, it just could replicate it. I forget what they
call it, a multiverse.
That's what it is. Multiverse.
And not. And it's pure, faith, anti-Christian faith on their part, because by definition, you can't find anything outside of our universe. But they say, oh, it's got to be out there. It's nonsense, and it doesn't work for other technical mathematical reasons even. It's been proven you can't go back infinitely. At some point in time, there had to be, from nothing, a first universe.
Yeah. You're right. You can't. I guess I've heard, and I said who I was talking to before. I won't give his name, but that was one of the multiverse. If there can be a God who's outside time and space, why can't there be the option of this multiverse theory? But to me, I just got thinking. It takes more faith, I think, on the side of the individual that does away with these things, to think that chance or nothing. To me, that takes a greater faith element than the faith that we placed in, not in things seen like science. Plus the person of Jesus. And I mean, we didn't even get to that yet. And the reliability of the scriptures, it just seems such a far stretch that it almost takes more faith on that side.
One book that was written absolutely is, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. In other words, I can't believe all the nonsense that you have to believe in to deny God.
Mm-hmm. For sure. What do you say to the person? And I don't know if it's a philosophy question, because I guess we'll all hear it at some point. If if God created everything, then there's the who created God type of question. How do you how would you approach? How would you give an answer to that so we know how to be more prepared?
Yeah, the fallacy of that argument, who created God, is there, although it's kind of hidden. So let's talk about that. That's a good question. When you have things created in our universe, that means they're separated by time. Okay, yes. Something happened first, then something happens later.
Yes.
Okay. God created time. God is outside of time. He has to be by definition. By
if you created
time and space, and I think that was God. So God is outside of time. So the question, who created God, doesn't make sense, because there's no time where God is. Okay, and there are so much beyond our human understanding. And I realize it's difficult. We all want a simple answer to who created God, but God is outside of time. I mean, it's powerful. To me, I think of our universe as a fishbowl. So imagine you're a fish in a fishbowl, and you look out and you see things. Maybe you see things moving, people walking around. You have a dim sense of what's going on out there, but you're not outside. well, our fishbowl is big, it's the universe, but we have no way of seeing anything or knowing anything that's outside the fishbowl except what God tells us in the Bible and in our hearts. So we don't have perhaps the imagination to figure out what's outside the fishbowl. I don't think we can. We're limited to, this time, space, and matter universe. But there's something out there, Steve, and it's something that created this universe, and time doesn't apply to it. So the question, who created God,
It's nonsensical, I guess.
is nonsense. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess another one, and I don't know if this refers to more philosophy or it just refers to the point that who cares, but it's it would get down to the problem of suffering. Because I know a lot that will be listening to my channel, if they switch over to this, they may be a quadriplegic. They may have been born with a disease or things like that, and from someone in science like yourself and a very good apologist, how do you start to talk to some of my crowd about suffering?
Yeah, that is I don't know if you've heard of John Lennox. He's a famous English mathematician, but he he says the hard question isn't science and God. If you actually look at that honestly, that's real easy. I would say, well, easy maybe is the wrong word, but it's the connection is quite clear.
Yes.
The hard question is God and suffering. As he put it in one of his famous talks, how can you have both incredible beauty and then bombs? Horror beyond imagining and incredible beauty. We don't know. Are you familiar with the book of Job in the Bible?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's one of the oldest books in the Bible, probably. And Job was a real person. I mean,
for sure.
And so God allows Satan to torment Job, and Job gets pretty mad at God. He doesn't lose his faith, but he gets angry. And then finally, in the end chapter, God basically says, look, I'm God. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? You don't get to question me. I'm God. So we have a God that responded that way to Job, but he doesn't just leave us out there. And now you're getting into the subject of Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a God who took human form and he suffered with us. He was walked on earth with us, and he died for us just about the most miserable, painful, humiliating death that anybody could.
Yeah.
If you read about crucifixion and what they put Jesus through. And then he rose from the dead. And what he's telling us is that there's another world out there.
Yeah.
There's a heaven. God created a new home. As he says, in my Father's house, there are many rooms. And we have to trust God. I think, in a way, our journey on this planet is going to be measured ultimately on our ability to trust God.
Yeah.
It's not just, I don't see it as some sort of ultimate, I'm going to be miserable now,
No.
pie in the sky, because if you trust God, then you will find, like I saw in that church when my son was getting baptized, you will find a serenity in your life. You will find a peace in your life.
Yeah.
So there absolutely is suffering. It absolutely is horrible. But Jesus was a real person, and he died for us, and he suffered with us. That's my response to that.
Yeah. He was familiar. He was acquainted with our grief and our sorrow. And I was reading just yesterday, Zechariah what is it, 16:10, something like that, but where Yahweh says that he is going to, the Jews will be in awe, but he of who he says on whom they did this to, talking about the crucifixion, and he talks in the first person, and then he says on him, and then on me, in that, and I thought it just hit me between the eyes that what I go through every day or whatever, God knows the depths of that suffering, and I think, and I think, I don't know if I'm wrong with this, and correct me if I am. Does ultimately does the gift of choice and choosing, is that not really the entrance to where things can go wrong? You know what I mean? Like the ability to make decisions and have the ability to choose to love, to like, dislike, that gift comes with the other side of it, that when we choose things that aren't right, and boil it right back to the garden, we would just be meat robots, right? Without the ability to choose.
Yeah, I mean, when God created things, they were good, and the short story is we messed it up. You know, when humanity fell, and when Adam and Eve fell, we all fell in a sense. We were all there. You know, and there is clearly a connection. Philosophers I think, will tell you, between free will and suffering. We have free will, and we tend to mess things up, both individually and as a society.
Yeah, I know that personally to be true in my life. Psalm 19 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God."
Yes.
Do you feel that science is revealing new depths and ideas that will continue to leave science in awe and wonder? Have we just knocked on, the person, our neighbor next door, let alone what's beyond that?
We are, as science grows, the evidence for God gets stronger. It doesn't recede. And what we found in the human body in the last few decades, this code and this technology, it's well known by all the top biologists that this so-called Darwinian theory of keeping the best mistakes, what they call survival of the fittest, doesn't work. It can't produce code from nothing. It can't make the code better. Just adding typos to the code and then picking the best mistakes. That doesn't work mathematically. It's nonsense. And all the top biologists know this, but they think, well, Darwin had to be right because there can't be a God. But as we learn more, the new discoveries in physics, what we're seeing in space from the James Webb Space Telescope, and as we're flying by the planets and finding how geologically active they are. They're not billions of years old, for example. Everywhere we look, and we're starting to probe inside the atom, miraculous stuff there. We're starting to probe into human consciousness. There's strong evidence that we're not meat machines, as you just said, that our human consciousness exists outside of our bodies.
Yeah, there's no atom. There's no physical atom, I guess, for love, is there?
No, and there's just there's so much wonder out there that we're discovering. They've done operations where they've taken the blood out of someone's brain And so no electric signals or anything in the brain, yet people can remember what happened during the operation. Uh, there's near-death experiences.
Yes, absolutely. I've been
There's
listening to those.
there's so much out there that uh, skeptics will scoff at, but hundreds and hundreds of examples of things. So uh, there's a lot of wonder
Mm.
and a lot of hope, I would say, for Christians in our modern world.
For the individual, that may be, I'll get to that in a minute. This question though, is it, do you believe that scientists, you've got the Bill Nye, you've got the whatever, does it boil down to because we want to do what we want to do,
Yeah.
therefore no God? Is that how I'm not saying that people that don't believe in God don't have any morals or things like that, but how else do you not want to have a God when so much of everything out there screams there is a God?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't want there to be a God.
Yeah.
They don't like particularly this concept that they're going to be judged.
Mm.
And that's what the Bible tells us quite clearly. You and I, we're all going to meet Jesus in this lifetime. At the
Yes.
end of our life, we're going to meet Jesus and we're going to be judged. That makes people really uncomfortable. People don't want to have to be nice to that jerk that lives across the street or down the hall.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to spend Sunday mornings in church, maybe, or even praying or reading the Bible. They think they're real important or too busy.
Mm.
People come up with a lot of ways to delude themselves and to avoid God. And people have always done that. That'll never stop.
Yeah. You mentioned that we hit the first two. Creation was one, the fine tuning was the other. Before we talk about just where to get your books and things like that, can you give us the other? I'm in front of a math major. Four, yeah. What were the other four arguments that?
Sure. Well, there's
You were
7
pointing?
altogether in my book.
Yeah.
So we have
Let's
creation
start.
from nothing. We have the
Yeah.
fine tuning of the
Fine tuning.
universe.
Yeah.
Then the origin of life. Couldn't possibly, how do you get all this coding and machinery, which had to be there right from the beginning?
That's right.
Then other evidence of life is the technology of life. We talked about that, the machines and the incredible advanced stuff that goes on.
Yes.
There's also, when you look at the Earth, people say we found all these exoplanets. When you actually look at how special the Earth is, the size of our moon, our atmosphere, our chemical composition, the right distance from the sun, and all that, it's not clear there's a planet as favorable for life in the entire universe as Earth. The Earth is very, very, very special. And there's also a subject called quantum mechanics, which I think leads to God. Now, people say I don't understand quantum mechanics. Well, the truth is nobody understands quantum mechanics.
I was telling my wife before I got on, I said, I love this guy because he understands quantum mechanics or whatever.
I don't understand it, and no one understands it. Physicists have all these different theories about what it means.
Yes.
What we do know is they have equations for how it works. And by the way, the equations of quantum mechanics are mathematically the most complex equations in all of physics by far. But there are things in quantum mechanics that show that this reality is not all there is. And I think, in the book of John starts, in the beginning was the Word. And word there in Greek, they use the term logos, which means divine thought. So the book of John tells us that God thought the universe into existence. And that, in a nutshell, is quantum mechanics to me, which is when you break everything down, all you get is mathematical equations and thoughts. Particles, you can't pin them down. That's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You never know exactly what's what. But the one thing I like about quantum mechanics is a concept called quantum entanglement.
So,
Quantum entanglement, this has been proven thousands and thousands of times. Okay. So scientists can take two particles and make them exactly alike
okay.
in some, quantum mechanical ways that I can't describe. I'm not an expert on it, but you can look it up. Quantum entanglement. Then they take one of these particles, and it's not but just been done with subatomic particles. They can do it with groups of atoms, groups of carbon atoms, but they make these two items exactly alike quantum mechanically. And when they change one, the other changes instantly. When I say instantly, I mean instantly, faster than light can go between them. Okay, this defies general relativity, which says nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. What it's telling us is that these two particles, in God's mind, are really the same particle, and it just shatters all concepts of space and time, and it shows that we are living in the thoughts of God. We are living inside the mind of God, and I think quantum mechanics
That's a great
shows
statement.
that.
Living in the mind of God. That's a brilliant statement. Yeah. Quantum mechanics. Oh, was that 6 or 7? Or is that one of the arguments?
I think you got me. I only got up to 6. I don't remember the 7th.
Well, that's it.
Pull my book off the shelf here.
No, make the people get the book. That'll be a cliffhanger. So, yeah, this is what I did want to get as we close our time. You've been really gracious with me in your time. So the two books, the first one, again, show us the cover and where's the best, is it best to get it from your website or Amazon, or does it matter where?
It doesn't matter. If you go to my website, I think it directs you to Amazon.
Okay.
Because, so this is the one I wrote in 2014, Counting to God.
Counting to God. Okay.
Okay. And
Proof was the other one, wasn't it? Proofs?
The God Proofs.
The God Proofs.
The God Proofs, which is my graphic novel, my newest one.
And that's more reasonable?
It's written so that a scientifically inclined 10-year-old can understand it. Cool. It's good for adults too, although I have a friend of mine who's a very successful physician. He said it was too complicated. So, and another friend of mine gave it to his granddaughter who was 14. She said it was below her level. So and then I've written a novel called Rise Above. So these are all on Amazon. They're all on my website, Counting to God. And people can also, sign up for Rise Above.
Yeah, can you give us just a snippet? You talked to the other two. What would a snippet of Rise Above
is about a ultra rich guy who gets terminal cancer and has a vision of God.
Okay.
And he gets the message to give his money to God, and his kids don't like it.
Boy, that plays out.
So there you go. And they discuss these kind of subjects during a snowstorm at a house in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that I have a blog. You can sign up for my blog on my website. And
absolutely.
And
we'll put that on my notes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great. I mean, I would love, I could sit and talk all day about it because not only do I love the Lord, I love talking about the proof of him, because we live in such a negative society, an anti-Christ, anti-God society, that when you talk to a fellow believer, but one that's really entrenched in the truth and the deep understandings, if we can understand God. It's been a real pleasure, and I thank you for that. If someone is listening right now and they want to start exploring the evidence for God honestly on their own, where would you encourage them to begin after this episode or tomorrow? Just to start putting one foot in front of the other. Yeah, I mean, my closing question.
I mentioned 3 organizations.
Yes.
Institute for Creation Research, which has a museum in Creation Museum in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Answers in Genesis, which has a full-scale replica of Noah's Ark and a
Yes.
Creation Museum in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then Creation Ministries International, which has the website creation.com. All of those there are so many videos and books. And I would advise people also to sign up for my blog, because I usually, talk about what's new and what's relevant.
That's great.
It's out there, and we do live in a very anti-God world.
Yeah.
And I commend you for your ministry of helping people find their way to God. I commend you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think it's born within me, somewhere in my DNA. God put it together. But people that, especially people that I want to see them thriving. I mean, life is but a vapor, and to be miserable down here, despite your circumstances, I just think my heart breaks for people that are either ill or have gone through difficulty, because if they're miserable in this world, and this is the only hope they have in this world, but what's to come is even worse. And
Yeah.
I think that's the whole reason why I started Swagability, was to help people to thrive. But the reason that underpins everything is to enter into a relational chat with them, where I can introduce them to the person of Jesus. And along the way, some of these other great, shows with you that can provide the substance and proof that it's not a leap. It's not this blind jump that people define faith as. There is so much solid evidence for it that, as we said before we got on air, you have to reason yourself almost away from what makes sense in order to deny that there's a creator out there. So, yeah. I'd like to do a 2.0 down the road, because what's next? You've got 3 novels on the go. You just hit retirement. But I don't see a guy that's been an MIT grad and written 3 novels saying still soon. What are some of the things you enjoy to do outside of, or maybe it is burying your head in the study of the deep things of the earth? Do you have other hobbies?
Sure. I play a very mediocre game of golf, but it gets me outside enjoying golf, God's creation with my
Can't be a
wife.
lawyer without being a golfer.
Well, actually, I did play golf when I was a lawyer. I've taken it up in my old age.
Oh, wow.
Poorly, but it's fun. I play bridge. It's a good way to connect socially with people. I love to travel. I'm blessed with 5 grandchildren. But I'm working on a new book, which gets me going. I get up usually by 5 a.m. because I can't wait to get to my computer and work on it with my first 2 cups of coffee. So I'm very lucky, and I'm blessed. And again, it's a joy. Thank you to be on your show.
All right. We'll include all your books in our show notes and the websites that you've mentioned. And I would say, just to the listener who may by off chance caught this tiny little podcast that's going on, I guess I would plead with them to, authenticity is really what we have at the end of the day, who we are authentically. We know ourselves, but we've also been gifted with a mind to think, and I think we'll be held accountable to what we've done with that ability to reason and to search out what is true. And I think Jesus says, if you seek me, you will find me. And so I would say, as we close, cry out to God. He's there for you and desires a relationship with you. And this has been the first episode of the Spiritually Starved podcast. So you could do us the greatest honor by following us, and you'll know when the next episode drops. As well, visit our YouTube page where we have our other podcasts on there from Swagability. And if God leads you to supporting what my wife and I have started over on our website, swagability.com, you can support our ministry in providing support for those who are going through life-altering circumstances. Till next time, friends, stay safe, stay strong, and get to know your God.